Game time, we diving deep. From the stairs to the play, no time for sleep. Below the surface, we're working, we set the scene. Who's your host? Scott Levine. Below the surface.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of Below the Surface. This is where stats meet strategy. Shout out to everyone tuning in, whether you're an OG or a new viewer. I'm so excited to share this episode with you guys. In my first ever episode, I told you about my love for the rookies, and today I'm going to be talking about 6 rookies I think you should absolutely be drafting for fantasy football this year. I've personally watched all 6 of these players' collegiate film, and I can't wait to take you through their full backgrounds, their skill sets, and the fantasy outlook. These 6 guys that I'll be discussing aren't just the obvious names either. Also, in fantasy football, the rookies are the most unknown assets and potential game changers that can be league winners for your team. So with that said, let's not waste any more time because I'm ready to dive in. Let's kick things off with a running back who's checking all the right boxes, and that's Kaleb Johnson, running back, Pittsburgh Steelers, drafted round 3, pick 83, out of Iowa. Kaleb Johnson isn't just another mid-round rookie running back in the fantasy dead zone this year. He's got the talent, the opportunity, and the Steelers' run scheme is a perfect fit for Kaleb's play style. He's going to have a real shot at being a weekly fantasy contributor right from the start of the season. So let's back up and give a little context on Kaleb Johnson. He played high school in Ohio and was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and ranked RB 35 in his class. In high school, he was a multi-sport varsity athlete playing track and baseball and football. And Kaleb wasn't always viewed as a top running back prospect. In fact, coming out of the state of Ohio State was looking into him, and they actually wanted him to change positions and play linebacker because of his physicality. But Iowa, thankfully, saw his potential as a runner, and he was able to stick as his natural position there. So what did he do in college? At Iowa, he was a 3-year contributor, and he was a 1-year starter at Iowa in their zone scheme. In 2024, his final year, he had 1,725 total scrimmage yards and 23 total touchdowns last season. That 1,725 scrimmage yards was more than they had passing yards. Think about that. More total yards than they threw the ball. Crazy stuff. He also was an explosive runner for Iowa. He had 21 carries of 20-plus yards, second most in college football. And then at the NFL Combine, he measured in at 6 foot, 220 pounds, which is just great size for a running back. At the 40, he ran a 4.57, but don't let that 40 fool you. PFF clocks him as one of the 25 fastest running backs in the game, like his in-game speed, over the last 8 years. And on tape, that shows. He's a patient, powerful runner with good vision and good burst. He finishes runs through contact with his strong balance and good pad level. Sometimes he gets tackled earlier than I feel like he should, but that happens, and he does run well. He also has solid hands, but he wasn't heavily targeted due to Iowa's limited passing offense. Now let's get into the landing spot with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers' backfield just lost Najee Harris, which opens up so much touches for this backfield. And I expect Kaleb to handle the early down and short yardage work, while I expect their other running back, Jaylen Warren, to handle more of the pass catching role. And then I have to get into offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, who is a very run-heavy play caller. In his offenses as a head coach and offense coordinator, his running attack has ranked top 10 in rushing attempts 5 of the last 6 years. And in those 6 years, he had multiple seasons finishing top 3 in rushing yards as a team. With Smith's scheme and Johnson's play style as a downhill physical zone runner, he fits really perfectly in this offense. And then the fantasy outlook. Currently, I looked into Sleeper's ADP for every player. That's my favorite fantasy platform. And his fantasy ADP is currently 80th overall. And that is a a really nice spot to take a guy with a lot of upside. He's likely to get a lot of volume and some receptions due to Aaron Rodgers' tendency to throw to the backs on checkdowns. He's no longer one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the league and will throw to the running backs more often than other quarterbacks currently. Think of Tom Brady and Drew Brees. As they aged, they continue to check it down more, and Eli Manning even. They also, this offseason, like I said, they brought in Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback, and then they traded for Jonnu Smith and DK Metcalf this offseason. So this offense should be good enough to stay on the field a little bit more, and I like the additions they made with those two players. So he should be their goal line back and see a good bit of opportunities. All right, let's move on, because the next rookie could heavily outperform his price if he sees even 10 to 12 touches a game. And I'm talking about running back Dylan Sampson, drafted by the Cleveland Browns in round 4, pick 126. And Dylan Sampson, he might not be a household name yet, but when the Browns picked him in the 4th round, some sharper fantasy managers took notice. And his path to a role could come quicker than we initially expected. But first, let's go into Dylan Sampson's background. He was actually the first ever skill position player to become a varsity athlete at his high school in Louisiana. He was a 3-star recruit, and he was the 36th ranked running back in his class. And he also did multiple sports in high school. He was a track athlete with a ton of speed, and he was also a very smart kid. He had strong academics, a 4.0 high school GPA, and he carried that into college with a strong GPA in college as well. He went to Tennessee in college, and he was only a 1-year starter, backing up some players his first 2 years. And as a 1-year starter, he played in a high-paced, up-tempo, shotgun-heavy Tennessee offense. And like I said, he played behind Jabari Small and Jalen Wright early on in his career until he took over as the starter. And once he became the starter in 2024, just an unbelievable season. He averaged 131 rushing yards per game in the SEC, against the SEC opponents, I should say. And in his junior year that season, that 2024 season, he had 1,491 total rushing yards and 22 rushing touchdowns. And for his college career, averaged 6 yards per touch in his career. That's just incredible. And it showed in his PFF grade as well, totaling a 90.9 PFF rushing grade, which is just elite. At the combine, he measured in at 5'8", 200 pounds, and he ran a 4'4", 240. And his skill set shows his elite acceleration and top-end speed. He's also got great burst and contact balance, and he said himself that he kind of models his game after Alvin Kamara a bit. He shows really good vision on counters, tosses, and those outside zone runs, and he's just got a nose for the end zone. In his college career, he has 36 touchdowns in 35 career games. He's also a capable pass catcher, and he consistently fights for yards after contact. His fit with Cleveland, they actually double-tapped running backs in this draft, taking rookie running back Quinshon Judkins in the 2nd round, but he's currently unsigned and dealing with legal issues, dealing with that domestic violence case, and we'll see how that plays out. They also brought back Jerome Ford and have Pierre Strong as depth behind him. Jerome Ford, he's a solid player, and he's not like some superstar, so Dylan Sampson can really find a role early. Also, their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, he loves multiple back sets, and he runs a zone-heavy scheme that fits Sampson as well. Unfortunately, their current O-line and quarterback play is very concerning. They're going to be missing their star tackle, Jedrick Wills, and the quarterback situation with Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and the 2 rookie quarterbacks that they drafted. It's just hard to know if this offense is going to be actually good. So just be patient with Dylan Sampson, even if he's not efficient or effective very early. But for fantasy, in the best ball streets, the 0 RB and hero RB builds, he's a really good fit for those kind of models with his later price, and he's just in a backfield where he might get more touches than expected. Also, for Dynasty, he's just a guy that I think you guys should be drafting and will probably outperform his rookie draft capital. I kind of compare him to a Devon Achane coming out of Texas A&M. I don't know if he'll be as good as Achane, but I think they have similar play styles. So, yeah, his upside is real, but like I said, patience with those rookie running backs in fantasies. And next, if you're looking for a rookie who's going to command targets immediately and contribute as a reliable option in a good offense, you need to know the name Emeka Egbuka. Now, Emeka Egbuka, he's a wide receiver drafted in the first round, pick 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out of Ohio State. And he's another one of those Ohio State receivers that I think we're going to be calling a great player. He's just one of the most polished, dependable, intelligent wide receivers in this class. And when Tampa Bay took him at 19, a lot of people took notice, and especially the smart fantasy managers did. So his background is he was a 5-star recruit coming out of Washington, and he was actually ranked a top 10 nationally. And in high school, he was a multi-sport athlete growing up, and he played both ways in high school. He loves sports. He always was playing sports growing up, and he really just was tremendous in high school. Actually, in his championship game, he had a 18-catch game, over 100 yards and a touchdown, and it had a pick as well. Just unbelievable high school player. And then in college, he shared the field with some Ohio State wide receiver greats. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., JSN, and just this past year, he played with freshman phenom Jeremiah Smith. In his college season, he had back-to-back elite seasons, and he was a real red zone weapon, and he's just got such strong hands. I found some stats for us. He was 2.7 yards per route run versus zone, which was 95th percentile in the FBS, and he's just known for his ability to find that soft spot. At the combine, Emeka Egbuka came in at 6'1", 200 pounds, and that's just great size for a wide receiver. I love when they're over 200 pounds. Now, this guy, he was a 3-year starter at Ohio State and is actually the all-time receptions leader for this team. He was mostly a slot receiver for them, especially this last year. He played 81% of the snaps in the slot for them. Just love his game. Stacks defenders well. Smart player. Always in the right spot. And he's just going to be a great, reliable player for Baker Mayfield. So let's talk about his fit in this Buccaneers offense. Eventually, these Buccaneers are going to need a future wide receiver too and a long-term slot option, with Chris Godwin getting up there in age, and Mike Evans is also aging. He's still dominant, but he showed some signs of regression last year. And then we also have Chris Godwin entering camp on the PUP with this coming off the ankle injury last year. Mike Evans' splits were significantly worse last year with Godwin in the lineup versus without him. He actually was almost 3 catches and 40 yards less with Godwin in the lineup versus without. I wanted to mention on the Kelsey podcast, Baker Mayfield was brought on as a guest, and they asked him about Emeka Egbuka, and he was just talking so highly about his NFL readiness and just how polished he is as a receiver and his ability to play all over the formation. For fantasy, he's going in the wide receiver 4 range, and I think he's really got upside, maybe even top 15 upside eventually this season. And in best ball, he's like around 8 to 9 flex. And I think he's a great pick for these leagues. Also for Dynasty, I think he's a first round level pick for you in Dynasty in a 12-man Dynasty league. So yeah, Emeka Egbuka, he's one of the most NFL ready rookies in this class. And he'll just be a plug and play guy from day one. But let's shift gears. What if I told you that there's a rookie wideout with great speed who's walking into an open wide receiver room going outside the top 100 picks? Well, that's Jayden Higgins, wide receiver for the Houston Texans, picked round 2, pick 34. And Jayden Higgins was actually the first player selected by the Texans in the 2025 NFL Draft. Houston traded back from their first round pick with my New York Giants and still made Higgins a priority, taking him first with their first pick. So a little bit about Jayden, his background. He was also a multi-sport high school athlete, and that seems to be a theme of this video, is these guys are just incredible athletes. He did basketball and track as well, but he was only a 2-star recruit out of Florida, ranked 455th wide receiver nationally. Crazy. Just an incredible hard worker, clearly. He actually started his career at Eastern Kentucky before he transferred to Iowa State, where we know him best. He was a 2-year starter for Iowa State, playing 72% of his snaps as their X wide receiver. And he's just a really big-bodied, 6'4", 214-pound, physical wide receiver with really strong hands. At his career at Iowa State, he averaged 15 and a half yards per catch. In his career, had 8 career 100-yard games and 7 consecutive games with a touchdown at Iowa State. He was also last year's PFF's #1 graded wide receiver with minimum 50 targets, finishing with a 90.3 receiving grade. He's just got such elite catchability when he's targeted down the field, and he's such a smooth operator working that routes over the middle of the field as well. Now let's talk about his fit with the Houston Texans. He's got Nico Collins alongside him, which is a very similar style player, like a big body receiver who can get open down the field, but Jayden Higgins is a little smoother getting open over the middle, in my opinion. And CJ Stroud, he's just surgical with his anticipation and his deep ball. So I think he fits well, despite that they kind of have similar play styles. Also, this wide receiver room is not very crowded right now. They actually have Tank Dell coming off an injury and might not be ready till way later this year. And then they bring in Christian Kirk, who's also coming off an injury from last year, so we'll see how he does. In the draft, they draft his teammate from Iowa State, Jalen Knoll, and so that'll be some nice familiarity and just continuity coming from college to the pros, just knowing how to run routes with him. And for the fantasy outlook, like I said, he's going outside the top 100 picks. His ADP is 116 right now on Sleeper. He won't be a guy you're looking to throw into your lineup from week 1, but he could really carve out a big role by midseason. And for Dynasty, he's a top 5 rookie wide receiver for me. Think of him as like rookie year Rashee Rice with the ability to break out down the stretch of the season in the second half of the year. A second round rookie wide receiver like that. If Higgins hits, you're getting a big bodied vertical threat that's really cheap. And that's the kind of late round dart throw that can win you your championship or those best ball tournaments. But this next rookie that I'm getting into, he's not a sleeper. He's a potential league winner, and somehow he's still flying under the radar. Let's get into Omarion Hampton. He was the Chargers' first-round pick at pick 22 and could be a real hidden fantasy bell cow. So let's start with his athletic background and his recruiting cycle. He was a 4-star recruit and the 11th ranked running back in his high school class out of North Carolina. He was multi-sport athlete as well in high school, playing 3 different sports, football, basketball, and track. And he was also the North Carolina Gatorade Player of the Year. And then he chose to stay close to home, going to UNC, the University of North Carolina, for college. And in his time there was just a great back for them. In his 2 years as a full-time starter for them, he had back-to-back 1,500-yard rushing seasons, and over his 2 years had 30 rushing touchdowns. In just his last season, 2024, he had over 2,000 scrimmage yards and 100 rushing yards in 10 of his 12 games. That is just incredible production and really shows how he was a focal point of this offense. And it was true. Teams were really keying in on him, and it didn't even matter. He also averaged 25-plus touches per game in that final year. Going into his receiving upside, he had 67 catches the last 2 seasons, and he has only 2 drops on 80 career college targets. He's a real downhill runner with reliable hands and just can be used in a 3-down capacity. At the combine, he came in at 5'11", 220 pounds, running a 4.4 640, which is just an incredible size-speed combination, and he's just going to be a really impressive player, man. So with that said, I really got to get into the Chargers coaching staff. These 2 guys, especially the offensive side of the ball, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, they've been together in the NFL forever, dating back to San Francisco, and they coached together also in Baltimore and now in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Under Greg Roman's offenses, his rushing attack has consistently ranked top 9 in rushing attempts and top 8 in yards, with multiple years of finishing top 3 in rushing yards as a team. But last year, without a bell cow and with a more pass-heavier quarterback in Justin Herbert, the Chargers ranked 11th only in attempts and 17th in rushing yards last year as a team. But this year, they made some big changes. The Chargers let their running back, J.K. Dobbins, walk in free agency, and they bring in Najee Harris from the Pittsburgh Steelers. But unfortunately, currently, Najee's dealing with some injuries. We'll get into that later. And then, they invest in a first-round capital running back in Omarion Hampton. So for the fantasy outlook, his current ADP on Sleeper is 44 right now, but I think that could climb even higher by August, especially with the Najee injury. Over this past summer, during the July 4th weekend, it seemed that something happened to Najee's eye, maybe with the fireworks, and we'll have to wait to hear more. And that might lead to him getting more running, Hampton getting more running camp, and that's just great opportunity to take advantage of for a rookie. He's a big-bodied, strong runner with the 3-down capability, and he's shown that pass-catching ability, and he can also be a great, efficient goal line back. So if anything happens to Najee, especially if he misses any games, Hampton's just going to be tremendous for you guys. If you're betting on the talent and the draft capital and the fit, Omarion Hampton is that guy. But also, let's get into the next guy. Don't sleep on this next rookie. He was a top 10 pick. Yeah. And he might walk into 90-plus targets as a tight end. And that is Colston Loveland. So this pick definitely stirred up some debate. A tight end at pick 10. Brock Bowers didn't even go that high. Is Loveland better than Bowers? Does this make him a generational tight end? What about Cole Kmet? He's still on the roster. But let's get real. Colston Loveland was drafted this high for a reason. Getting into his background, he was a 4-star recruit and was the 14th ranked tight end in his class. But he actually transitioned to tight end his sophomore year after he had a growth spurt. And this guy, he's just continuously praised by his coaches for his strong work ethic. He actually was the back-to-back leading receiver at Michigan these last 2 years. And even as a freshman came in and made an impact, over his career, he had over 1,400 yards and 11 total touchdowns. The Michigan ran a more pro-style offense and lined him up in the slot and in line. He was able to move around the formation. He's a real good receiver for a tight end. He's a real mismatch for safeties and linebackers. At the combine, he came in at 6'6", 248 pounds, and with that size, it's just really great. And the way he moves as a receiver is just impressive. The advanced metrics back up his numbers as well. He's the only early declare Power 5 tight end since 2018 with over 2 yards per route run versus man and zone. Not even Kyle Pitts or Brock Bowers did that. He also received a 90 PFF receiving grade, despite having poor QB play. Yeah, like I said about his coaches talking him up, new head coach Ben Johnson said that he just attacked his rehab this offseason so heavily, and he said he saw him the most out of any player this offseason, really just wanting to be on the field and be there by training camp. We've seen Ben Johnson turn rookie tight ends into elite fantasy options. For the Lions, Sam Laporta as a rookie was the tight end 1 and turned into a fantasy star. So this offense, they have a lot of mouths, but he should be used all over the field. And he should be definitely used. He's not going to replace Kmet early on, but they'll play together in 12 personnel, and he'll likely out-target Kmet, playing in the slot and maybe even used as an inline blocker. Currently, his fantasy ADP is right now pick 107, and he's just a great late-round flyer. He's great in tight end premium leagues, and he should finish as a top 12 fantasy tight end, in my opinion, for redraft. And then going into Dynasty, he immediately comes in as a top 8 fantasy tight end, in my opinion. And for best ball, just think of him like Dalton Kincaid, where Dalton Kincaid was drafted very comparably his rookie year. And I think he could even be possibly better than Dalton Kincaid. So I'm just looking at taking Colston Loveland everywhere. Well, that's a wrap on today's deep dive. We went into 6 rookies who I believe can make a real impact this fantasy season. I hope in my breakdown of this episode, you guys were able to get to know these guys better and more than just their names and their draft spots. And now you'll be able to draft them more confidently, and they can be real game changers for you. So I hope you draft one of them at least. And if you found this episode valuable, please like, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, I just want to say thank you to all my viewers for tuning in and trusting me this fantasy season to help you sharpen up your fantasy skills. Until next time, I'm Scott, and this is Below the Surface.